I guess we can get started now. It's 1:32, so at this point, people are late. So is anyone, I know there's a few new people joining the call, and I just wanted to give people an opportunity to give introductions to what they're working on or what their project is who weren't on the call last time. And if you want to,
I'll go.
Yeah, awesome.
I can go. I'm Ricky. I'm with their protocol. Nice to meet you guys. We're building a generic protocol for building TCRs. Yeah, and currently we're trying to push something out to testnet so that we can have at least ourselves and a small community play around with it. So yeah, excited to learn from you guys.
Awesome. Is Dirt like a client like that someone can use like a front end to then deploy their own TCR? Is that kind of what it is, or?
So yeah, so you can. Sorry, am I still on mute? Yeah, you can create. You can create any kind of registry. So even like a end user, average user could do it. Yeah.
Cool. Thanks, Ricky. Anyone else new to the call that didn't get a chance to introduce himself last time?
I'm Nick. I'm at Civil. Dan from Civil was on the call last time, so he probably gave an introduction or a project. A lot of you probably heard of it. We're gearing up for our mainnet launch in a couple of weeks, though. And if you want to try out our DApp on Rinkeby, reach out to me, and we can get you set up with some fake tokens and try it out.
Yeah, actually did a while ago. Dan lent me an address. It was really cool. I actually wrote some feedback for you guys. I should send that along. Just small stuff about the UI. Yeah, thanks. Anyone else new to the call want to introduce themselves?
Hi, I'm Jahan. I work on Althea, which is a thing that lets routers page up for bandwidth. People can create decentralized ISPs. We're planning on using a TCR on a global level, basically as a quality assurance method for local networks, so people can be sure that they're getting sort of a network that's going to be providing good service and et cetera. So it's kind of, I look at it as like a decentralized franchise model in a way. So we're planning to use TCR for that. So
really cool, awesome. And anyone else? Okay, cool. So I thought we could start off today talking about, we said last call that we could start out each call with like a big update that a team might have. And since our last call, Foam went on mainnet and have been working with that. So Ryan's gonna come in and tell us about the experience, and we can ask questions about that. So with that, I'll hand it over to Ryan.
Okay, thanks so much for having me and your guys' attention. I'm probably going to share my screen while speaking. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to be speaking about Foam, which is a spatial protocol, primarily focused on proof of location. In addition, we're providing a lot of spatial standards and tools to build web apps that are connected to the blockchain and have a map component. And really, when we were addressing proof of location, we had like two kinds in mind. One that we call dynamic proof of location. So this is how can we verify things through time and space. And for that, we're relying on basically a radio protocol to basically emulate GPS with fraud proofs. And the other kind of proof of location is what we call static proof of location. So that is, how do we verify things like on the map that don't actually move around? And for that, we're using a token curated registry that is just launched to the Ethereum mainnet. And the idea really is about building up a registry of verified points that are basically have some sort of social consensus around them that they are there. And ultimately, the goal of this registry is to actually be utilized by other smart contracts and other applications that are going to want to reference accurate data points. So the context for this registry is really infrastructural for future use cases that will need to rely on basically accurate data about the map. And so, yeah, we've launched this TCR version 1, which is based off of Mike Golden's repo and the ad chain work with some slight modifications, mostly an upgrade path. But yeah, I'm going to just go over some high-level aspects and walk through a demo, and then happy to take any questions. So generally with like the registry, you know, this is what it looks like. I'll go into the demo after, but our list is essentially rendered as a map. And the points on the map are what's in the registry and on the blockchain. And so in this case, a blue point means that it's a new candidate that is pending to be on the list. A green point has been added to the registry and is verified, and red ones are ones that are in the middle of a challenge. But one question, maybe before we go in a bit deeper, is like, what are the current issues with like mapping systems today? And they're highly subjective. So for example, at Google, they actually, when you're searching the map, they filter POIs and rank them. So there is actually a ranking function and a different way to visualize different amounts at different zoom levels. So there's already this kind of system of prioritizing points over other points. And in this case, it's Google's algorithm subjecting you to that. But when you look at a comparative map, sorry, I don't know where that is. Here, at the same zoom level, for example, Google versus Apple, they actually choose to show you different things. So really just pointing to the fact that we don't have like one single source of truth or a map we rely on, although it seems like it's a solved problem. And different maps show you different things. So in this kind of Web 3.0 map, we want to have points that are verified across interoperable systems. And another thing to think about is why this may be important is that today we have a lot of open source mappers and people contributing to OpenStreetMap. But there's no incentive or model to actually verify that data. So it's maybe fun or pleasurable to map out your city, but basically big corporations have to subsidize checking all this data, and they ultimately wind up making proprietary data sets. So Uber, Lyft, Mapbox, they all have to take this OpenStreetMap data, clean it up, check it themselves, and then they go around and sell it. So the public doesn't really have access to any of the true mapping data. And another thing to consider is vandalism. Is also a big problem in OpenStreetMap. So when Pokemon Go took off, people realized that the game was actually built on top of OpenStreetMap, and the types of Pokemon that rendered were based off different geographies. So people, for example, started adding Volcano to San Francisco, and it would get through and push to all the applications, and now you have fire Pokemon rendering in San Francisco. So it sounds like a cute problem, but it's started to affect like many applications, and so these companies have to pay tons of money internally to verify the data. And just more recently, about 2 months ago, there was kind of this like anti-Semitic hack that happened where OpenStreetMap map was edited to say Jewtropolis instead of New York. And that got through OpenStreetMap verification Mapbox and was pushed to applications like StreetEasy, City Bike, Snap Maps, and including the phone base map layer. So for a full day, we had, instead of New York, this kind of vandalized name. So it's just trying to, you know, point out some of the issues in Web 2.0 around verifying data. And we think that in this token curated registry model, there's basically a new incentive to actually participate in checking and verifying the data. So I'm just going to move now to the actual application. So this is the foam map on the mainnet of Ethereum. You can visit it at map.foam.space. Right now, it's only in this initial use period, so only those that participated in our token sale are able to interact with the map at the moment, but anyone can view it. So here I'm looking at Tokyo, where you can see there are a number of points, most of which have been verified, but the way it works is you can essentially learn about a point, see its description, see that it's been verified, has different numbers of tags. You can learn about its information on the blockchain, but you also have the ability to challenge it as a curator. And so, for example, if you wanted to challenge it, you can open a challenge and stake tokens. So in that sense, it's very similar to the add token, but I'm going to go through adding a new point and challenge it. So I've personally just been adding points in New York, and we have this dashboard functionality. So here you can open up to see your current assets. We've been having problems with it going a little bit slow, as well as POIs in view. So I, for example, am the owner of this point, which is a really great whiskey bar in New York. And so because I'm the owner, I can then also manage this point. And in that, we have what we call a boost function and withdraw. So there's a minimum deposit of 50 tokens at the moment, which is meant to be like an anti-spam mechanism of adding things to the map and could be lowered. But you could also withdraw tokens up to 50 or add more. And why would you want to add more is because we plan to introduce this ranking functionality to the application, similar to the Google Maps, so that the more tokens staked in a point, the more visible they will become at different zoom levels. So that's like kind of some of our ideas of how to introduce ranking into the points, so that a point with a lot of token stake would be much more visible from this zoom level versus tokens with very little stake you would have to kind of find and look around. So for example, I know that there's currently a challenge happening near Union Square. I believe it's like a restaurant. So you can see there's different things here. So, and part of, I should back up a bit. If those of you in part of the TCR space know how PLCR voting works, we also utilize that as well. And a lot of the challenges have been on the UI of how to actually pre-approve tokens to the registry, et cetera. So for us, we use this My Assets card, which can be expanded. And here you can essentially approve tokens to be used within the registry, as well as claim any rewards you may have from participating in votes. And separately on the voting tab, you can then approve different tokens to vote, and you can see where your tokens are locked or unlocked in different aspects. And so all of these basically then trigger MetaMask calls if you want to do any of those aspects. Which I don't know if it's because I'm on the call or what, but the internet seems to be quite slow. And so that's how you can approve tokens. It's pretty straightforward. And so essentially what we wanted to try to mimic was once you're set up with tokens, that the mapping experience is kind of familiar to people. So when you want to add something new to the registry, it's pretty straightforward. I'm going to add this point called the TCR Call and make it a demo point. So anyone who has tokens and wants to challenge it can do so. And so it's as simple as that for adding a new point. As soon as MetaMask will load. And for the sake of this demo, I'm going to put really high gas just so it will go really quick. And that's essentially it to add a new point. And so from there, you can track your transaction on the blockchain. And from the time of launch, we actually came into a really interesting issue, which was that we were indexing the blockchain in real time. And so sometimes our indexer was tracking uncle blocks. So we had a lot of users whose transactions went through on the blockchain, but didn't show up in our indexer. So we now have a 10-block delay, which is a bit slow for our map side. So now basically this transaction has gone through on the blockchain. And you can see I was calling this function to apply a new point. You can decode this data, and this is the IPFS hash that has all the metadata about the point, et cetera. And so that's really all there is to adding a new point. But we have introduced now this 6 to 10 block delay, so it may take a minute or two for that point to render. But in the meantime, you as a curator can look at other points on the map. So this one has an active challenge. I didn't vote, so I can't participate. I know there are a lot of challenges in Washington, D.C. right now I can show. So far we have over 5,000 points on the registry, so we're excited about that. And one interesting part of the user observation is that challenges have kind of tapered off. There was a bunch in the beginning around confusion of either addresses or tags, et cetera. But we have a lot less now, which ultimately, if we still have points being added, that's really the goal, is to have accurate points be added. And the challenge and verification function is really something to happen over time as this map becomes something other applications need to rely on. So I'll just show this challenge for quick, and then that's about it. So this is the Pentagon being challenged because of its claiming that it doesn't have the right phone number and no tag and no description. I guess this vote is currently in the reveal phase, so I can't participate. I'll have to find another one. But yeah, that's generally the high-level overview of the Foam app, but I'd be happy to like answer any specific questions anyone has about how we've implemented it or going forward.
In the challenge functionality that your UI exposes, is there any facility for users to like communicate with one another about the merits of the challenge?
So not directly in the app, but what we've done so far is we've opened just recently a message board. It's a discourse.foam.space, so we have like a specific challenge discussion, and people are mostly debating them there, and also trying to bring attention to the Telegram. But definitely something we want to look into to have. We had in some of our UI mockups like that you could leave chats or comments directly there, so that'd be a great feature to have.
Are there any plans to sort of implement a way of transferring ownership of listings? Like if I register your restaurant and later on you want to be able to like own that so you can increase the deposit or update the description.
Yeah, so one thing to keep in mind is like the registry we launched is set in stone, but there is this upgrade function. So you could launch a new registry and people can vote to like enact that one. So definitely that's something people brought up. So we're playing around with like two ideas. One is the ability to like boost the deposit to points that you don't own. So let's say, for example, Mike, you add the consensus office at the minimum deposit of 50, but over time, all your colleagues also deposited one token just because they effectively like it. That could like boost its visibility on the map. One other idea is that the actual things being added to the registry could be maybe an NFT, and that would maybe easily allow a change ownership function so that you could sell or trade to your friend if you registered their point. It's definitely something we've gotten feedback from on users that they want to be able to like transfer ownership of the point. Yeah, but at the moment you can't.
I was wondering, will it? You think it will ever be possible to register polygons?
Yeah, definitely. So that's kind of like a third track project of actually making the base map part of a decentralized stack. I think one of the challenges is it's like a big data problem. So like OpenStreetMap has like terabytes of changes a week in their change set of those polygons and data. So I think that's something we need to like work alongside big data blockchain projects, something like Vulcanized DB or BigChain DB that could support such like massive change sets happening. But definitely you could then layer the TCR logic into updating polygons for sure. But that's like a challenging project to implement.
Hey, Ryan, first thing, this is really cool. So congrats to the team for getting this up and running. Wanted to ask you a quick question just so I can understand how to use this UI a little bit more. Where on this can you actually see the reason for the challenge, or it's just the fact that it was challenged?
Yeah, so when you click the challenge, sorry, I think it's moving extra slow because I'm like on a bad internet. So when you just click the challenged point, so for example, this one was the...
Yeah, I'm on the Pentagon one right now. I see that it was challenged. I just...
That one is an error. It's because you didn't vote. It doesn't let you go forward. That's like a UI issue for us. Sorry.
Okay.
So if you click the ones that have challenges ongoing, brings you, okay, the capital, right? So you want to vote on it. It opens this page first, which shows you the reason as soon as it loads. So here, challenge was initiated October 23rd. The reported issue, the real address of the US Capitol is Capitol Circle. There's also grammar errors, and the government tag is inaccurate because the new government is Ethereum. Come on, man, get with it. So I think that's a pretty good reason to challenge the US Capitol. And so that's your challenge reason. And if you wanted to participate in the vote, you press then vote, and it brings you to the vote page. And so then I can vote just to show you how
Got
it
it.
works.
If you're not like if you aren't part of this, if you just have the view only access, can you then see, like if you're not a token holder? Because I'm not, and I'm only seeing
a Web3 browser. So do you have, if you're logged into MetaMask, you should be able to open.
Okay.
I believe so.
Got it. Okay, cool. Thank you.
So I've just voted on the US Capitol, and then of course we have the notorious SALT problem, which we would like to play a little bit catch up with the SALT UX working group and find better ways to handle SALTs. But for example, that's my SALT, so I'll save it somewhere. So I've just voted on the Capitol, but that's where you can find the reason at the first. Yeah.
Is there criteria for what is challengeable, like, are reasons that would make something invalid, or is that just totally open?
We've like put out some guidelines, but it really should be open to the creators. So it's like, for example, if you just found the phone number was wrong, and you care about the protocol, you might want to make a post about it on the forum and hope the owner of the point can remove it themselves and edit it. But people are really challenging for a range of reasons. For example, they challenged the White House because it was on the front lawn instead of the White House. And that challenge won, which is presumably correct because the front lawn is its own point of interest. But really, people have been challenging for a range of reasons. But I think one of the most interesting has been duplicate points. So we had like 7 Eiffel Towers, and a bunch got removed, and people were upset that they were there first, but they got challenged off because they didn't stake more. And so people thought the one with more stake was more legitimate. So we've come interesting there. And then in the South China Sea, there's a lot of challenges debating territorial disputes between sovereign nations. So we've noticed that as well.
Yeah, you'd think it would be nice for someone to notify, like, hey, this is a duplicate, or hey, this is on the lawn, not before like just challenging them and then like having their stake get taken away before they get a chance to fix a typo.
Yeah, I think that with a lot of the conversations in the TCR space for like a future version, we can take into consideration like a nudge or like this graded TCR, so you can start a challenge that would downgrade its status, not necessarily remove it, and things like that.
Hey, Ryan, agree. This is super awesome. Do you have any information on the participation and what's worked well in encouraging participation with the voting?
Sure. So I can say that in our like participation of the sale, we had roughly 1,000 participants, and we had pretty good global coverage of people. This is like the map of the geographic distribution of token holders. And part of our sale process is we implemented something called proof of use. So before tokens could ever be transferred or traded, we kind of force people to use them. So that's like one area where we have participation. So everyone has to add at least 10 points. And then it's been a range of different motivations. And of course, it's going to be a challenge of how to keep people interested to adding points, especially when the value is more long-term. But I mean, we have one cartographer who goes to every point himself and records himself being there and gives a little story. And takes photographs, and he said he's documenting it so in case he's ever challenged, he'll have his case to bring to the community. One guy has added over 200 points just because he loves it. So some people have like a fun aspect, some are doing it just because they have to unlock their tokens. But for us, we're definitely going to be organizing a lot of like mapathons in different cities and events and like extrinsic incentive models to increase participation. So we had a lot of debates of like having an inflationary model in the protocol, and at least in this short time, it seemed pretty hard to find one that wouldn't be gameable because ultimately it's subjective work being verified, not computational work. But we're looking to add a lot of like extrinsic incentives to boost participation over the coming year.
There was a question in the chat. Queen is wondering if there's a way to see all challenge points in the UI.
Yeah, that's coming. The next feature we're adding is in this list card that you'll be able to filter by state. So you'll be able to filter by your points, challenge points, other points. And then there'll be like a worldview list card so that you can then see the most recent challenge. Additionally, we have like a community member who's built an email notification service. We just didn't get to build it ourselves. It's similar to the one AdChain has, but that one updates you on all the current challenges, all the new points, and you can click and it brings you in the map to it. So those tools are coming or partially available already.
And assuming people are voting in the challenges, it seems like you guys have pretty impressive participation. So I was wondering what you would attribute that to, because that can be hard.
I would just say maybe because we made it kind of difficult to participate in the sale, and so people had to really prove that they digested all the material and understood the vision and understand for the most part that it's like a first iteration of a protocol where it's a final product, but Ethereum is not finalized either. So there's ways to increase. And I think people just wanted a chance to check it out and Hopefully the user experience is straightforward enough. I know a lot of people got caught up on pre-approving tokens for the registry. It's not so straightforward from a conceptual user experience, but yeah, I would just say that this is our token holder cohort that are dedicated, but we'll see how to maintain that kind of participation.
Have you done any analysis on like how many people are committing but not revealing?
Not specifically, but I know for a fact that there is a percent. Mostly because people forget, so more notification systems would be good. And then we have many cases of people losing their salt.
Would you say your users are more like crypto people that are getting into cartography, or cartography people getting into crypto?
Definitely the former, but I would say it's people who either had like experience in GIS work or did something geospatial related. But for us, like we just came from the State of the Maps conference in Detroit, which is the OpenStreetMap conference. And it's like, in the simplest way to explain it, it's like just everyone in that community is like exclusively in a Web 2.0 mindset. And they just don't know much about blockchain, or and we try to onboard or explain people to Foam, but you can see they need a lot more kind of education. So in our case, we were fortunate that all the people were kind of competent in how to use like a Ledger or a MetaMask and be involved. So I think all the token holders we have are definitely participated in multiple token sales prior to ours, but they just happen to have some sort of resonant connection to our project.
For the upgradability, are there any upgrades that you think will happen in the near term?
No, because the upgrade path is kind of like a big deal. So we're adding features on the front end and back end consistently, and we'll continue to, because that doesn't change the smart contracts. So for example, more notifications, better search, giving badges to users as rewards. That's all stuff we can continue to work on. But then the upgrade path is for launching like a whole new registry of smart contracts. And we basically are still working on this release and would need to kind of release it, see how people interact with it, and then evaluate which features. Because for example, it could go radically different where we introduce a new voting scheme that's better than PLCR, something where like the points on the registry are NFTs, so they can be traded. So there's like a whole design space to explore. So we don't really have a definitive time of when we would launch an upgrade in terms of a smart contract upgrade, but we'll continue to refine the interface.
Is there a way currently for new users to get involved, like to get token and participate?
Not at this moment, but the initial use period will be ending November 9th. So after that, those that have completed proof of use can transfer their tokens. So there may be an opportunity to purchase from an exchange.
Were you guys thinking about, I feel like I read this layered TCRs where like, you know, you have sub TCRs by region, and have you thought about the tech?
Something we're thinking about, and it's not right on our roadmap, but anyone else could of course build one on top of Foam, which would be great. So our thinking is Foam is meant to be this objective TCR where it's like, is that place there or not? And it's like, ultimately you can tie in this hard proof of location to make it to even vote, you would need to prove you were there. But subjective TCRs then are like, what's the best hiking locations? What's their favorite dance club? What's the best sushi restaurant, etc. And so if people wanted to launch subjective TCRs or integrate with bonding curves and launch a sushi coin or something and have it be referencing the Foam base layer, that's something that would be really exciting.
Cool.
I'd love to hear more of your plans about like a secondary market. You mentioned like listening on exchanges. Do you plan on like using a DEX and embedding it in your app, or what are you guys thinking there?
Yeah, I can't speak too much about exchanges, but in terms of the app integration, we're planning to looking into AirSwap and like the 0x widget. So less from like a trader's point of view, but if we can target cartographers or people inclined to look into this map, the idea is if they got into the map and they had Ether, within a few clicks, you could obtain Foam and begin to try it out. So that's definitely part of our onboarding process or thinking.
Yeah, we're planning on using AirSwap, and we have some weird like in-network transferability requirements too. So we have to like sort of make sure that you could transfer beforehand, or else it'll fail. So we don't think we could be on like centralized exchanges that easily. So we'll face some challenges there. We definitely, I think 0x is like also pretty good because they have these like permissioned liquidity pools that might be able to help with some of that stuff. So, but you,
Yeah.
you don't have any transfer restrictions after proof of use, right?
Once you've fulfilled it, that's it. So it's kind of like a troll guarding a bridge, and as soon as you've passed it, you're scot-free.
Have you seen, like, once people sort of do their proof of use, has their participation sort of went down, or do you have any data on that? Or
Some just did their 10 points, but other went dramatically higher. We'd have some data scattered around. We'll definitely be publishing like a retrospective with the hard numbers when we have a chance.
Awesome, thanks.
Do you guys have any plans to monetize the map or anything around the map, or have any business model that you could talk about for, like, if you want to run a TCR as a business?
Yeah, so it's not on our immediate roadmap. So far we've sold the software product, and we're focusing on building out the network as a business model. But specifically on the spatial index, which is the web app architecture that is running on the TCR map, we could certainly build a lot more layers, analytic layers, heat maps, cool tools. And because that costs labor to design and Amazon hosting credits to serve, you could of course charge a fee to interact with. So for example, you could make a better phone map right now that has more front-end features and more tools and more analytic tools, and charge a fee for people to use it. We could of course do the same. Right now we're just the interface facilitators, subsidizing the cost of the interface, but the contracts anyone else could build an interface for and charge a fee for, which we could do.
Very good.
You mentioned ranking being potentially based off of the amount of stake in a POI. Would multiple people be able to participate in that stake, or is that a thought?
In this current version, only one person can, but our thinking is that you can have collective staking on a point with likes almost, and that would aggregate almost like a review aspect. But you of course always own that token, so you say, hey, I don't like that coffee shop anymore, I want to withdraw. And so that's going to be a whole nother kind of marketplace of there's one marketplace of curating just the data. Is it on the list? Is it off? And it only needs this minimum deposit. And then there'll be a whole nother kind of competition of being visible in different cities. And as we get more real place owners onto the map, potentially, they may want to actually be more visible.
Cool. Yeah, I was almost wondering if a bonding curve or some kind of automated market might be a nice way to let multiple people kind of participate in boosting basically a POI.
Yeah, no, that's something I'm excited about, but this is kind of version 1 works the way it does.
And people that are putting the Pentagon on in the White House, those aren't necessarily businesses that they own. I mean, I suppose they're just trying to make the map better. Is there any reward you get for staking some money on something that's not directly benefiting you?
No, this is something we've talked a lot about and get a lot of critique from, but we published kind of our long reason against. Those are just cartographers wanting to contribute to the map, and so you basically still own those tokens. And over time, the idea is the more points added, the more tokens are out of circulation and staked, and the higher quality this map becomes. So there's kind of this deferred value accruance from being a cartographer. There is a payout for being a curator and participating in a vote. The reason we found difficulty with giving a direct reward is because it seems really gameable for many different aspects, and we didn't have too much time to simulate that much further. But for example, you could hide points that get verified and you get a payout. You may be more incentivized to add low quality points to try to get a payout. So we're not really focused on virality. Of course, if we wanted to put an inflation curve here and say everyone can get these tokens if you add points as quick as you can, that's one way. But then those map really has no context, and we're more interested in building out this registry than in relation to the applications that will want to rely on it. So it's more meant to be a slower process of building out the map, and defend against this ways to game the system, because it's ultimately subjective work. We didn't implement a reward. I'm not ruling out that that's a bad idea forever. It's just not one we thought through and didn't come to a model we're comfortable with.
Cool. Yeah, like if there's ever ranking, I guess, on a bonding curve or curation market, like John was saying, maybe be interesting if like you mark a plot and like you pre-mint yourself some curve tokens and maybe could eventually get rewarded that way if people rank your spot high. That could also probably be third party too, like another contract. But yeah, cool.
Ryan, you mentioned the applications that would rely on something like this. Could you talk a little bit or share a little bit about the types of applications that you may have already seen expressing interest in utilizing this?
Sure, I could say the first app we've seen was someone organized a treasure hunt on the phone map. So they basically added a point with a clue and hid a QR code somewhere. And that's really simple, and someone found that really quickly. But it really shows where when you have two different parties and they want to like coalesce around a point is where we would really integrate foam. So if you wanted a smart contract and another party to interact with that, but this kind of bond's probably the wrong word, but connects them together, would be the POI. So like a future use case is a decentralized Uber, and someone's like calling for a pickup and the other person is accepting that they're going to engage in that contract. Like in the actual contracts, a specific point on that map would be what is being referenced. And so that can be in a delivery scenario, it can be in an IoT scenario, it can be in a Pokemon game scenario. And there on kind of layer 2 as well, point owners or people connected to points could try to monetize the points in different ways. But it's really just meant to be this like registry reference system, not a data marketplace. So we're not trying to sell this data. We're trying to reduce information asymmetry and have this like open source verified consensus driven map.
Got it.
We probably have time for like one, maybe two more questions. Anyone else has anything else? Going once. Okay, cool. Thank you, Ryan, so much. That was awesome.
Thanks for your guys' attention and time. And
the UI, yeah, super slick UI like that. That's an awesome app. So we have like, I don't know, what, 20 minutes left. So the other stuff on the agenda was ad hoc updates. So kind of less formal. If anyone has something to share with everyone else in regards to their project or TCRs in general, this is the time to do that. I can start as well because I know us at Level K have some updates. Last time we talked about making a modular TCR GitHub repo, an open source library, kind of stemming from our initial need for a modular TCR because, you know, we've been making different variations and it was just kind of a tool for us to work faster, but we're looking to open source it. So we are teaming up with Zeppelin and we're going to release that as one of the Zeppelin libraries. And we're going to announce that for DevCon, but it's super proof of concept right now. And so I wanted to let you all know that if anyone wants to review our code, we would really appreciate it. And you can post the link if anyone's you know, interested in using that library. Yeah, so I can post the link in the GitHub. There's a lot of differences if people are really familiar with Mike Golden's and MetaX's like original vanilla implementation. One big thing is like the interface is different, so we don't have an apply function anymore. Instead, it's an add function. And on the back end of the TCR, it's kind of like you are adding an item, but it's an application phase, and that helps simplify the interface so that it can have a similar interface to more general or simple registries, like simple staked registries. So if you look at our code base, you'll see that we kind of extend it all the way up to the token curated registry, but there's a simple one just for staking, and ownable item registry. And another thing that we could really use a code review on is, I know Mike lately has had a really big focus on limiting the amount of calls made to a TCR with stuff like update status or update statuses. And that wasn't really at the forefront of our minds as we were focusing on this. So if people who are really are interfacing with TCRs on a daily basis and checking that to UI, had insight on what we've developed and maybe some drawbacks or stuff we haven't thought about, that would be helpful as well. So I can just post the link, and we would really love if people had feedback on that. So that's an update on our side in regards to TCRs. I don't know if anyone has questions about that, but. All right, I'll post that. And if anyone has questions, they can let us know. Does anyone else have any updates? New updates. Is anyone going to be at DEF CON?
Yes, I'll be
I'll be
there.
there.
Sweet. I know that there's like a meetup for governance. I don't know if there's any TCR meetups or creation market meetups that are going to be happening there, but it'd be cool to meet you guys in person.
I know in the Gitter, Simon was proposing one, but said he had no energy to organize it.
Yeah, I think it's like a barrier to try and organize in Prague. It's so far away. I'm not familiar with the city or the restaurants or the locations. But yeah, hopefully we'll all see each other. I mean, if no one has any updates, we can move on to kind of the next item, which is just kind of honing in on how to organize this call and what we want to get out of this call. How can we improve this call, etc. So I don't know if people have opinions on this. The one thing I could think of is having a collaborative chat room. I don't know what platform people like the best. That way we can sort of, instead of me emailing out an agenda, we can kind of come up with it casually over the course of a month and figure out what we want to talk about. So I don't know if people are interested in having some sort of chat room.
Yeah, that sounds good. Like a Telegram channel might work.
Yeah, I'm on Telegram a lot. I know people like Discord. People are in Gitter. Does anyone have any opinions in regards to what platform the chat room is on?
I'd probably vote for Gitter, but I'm open to whatever.
Okay.
I prefer Discord, but I mean, again, it's.
We got a vote from Telegram from Mike, so it's 3 options.
There's so many chat apps. I've never been on Discord actually. We
could like all post our preference in the chat and see if one is like obviously larger than the others.
Okay. I'll post mine. One for Discord. All right. I think it looks like Telegram. We could maybe, yeah, I think that's going to be Telegram. Is that okay? Everyone has Telegram on their computer? All right, sweet. Yep. Telegram. Awesome. Anything else in regards to the format of this group or of this call? Are people getting out of this call what they expected, or is there something else that could be happening?
I did it. I mean, my team is not currently working on a TCR, but hopefully we will be again in the future. And in the meantime, I like hearing what other people are doing in TCR world. It was nice to get the update from Ryan.
Awesome.
I guess what I'm curious, like, what's the state of like who's actively working on TCRs on this call, like in terms of your day job? I guess many people. Okay, cool.
I'm still a
But
little.
I can,
I'm sorry.
oh, I can weigh in.
Go
This is
ahead.
Moshe. I mean, we're actively working on a TCR. I mean, this whole objective thing that I talk about a lot. So we're working on layering a coordination game that occurs before actually applying to the TCR. And essentially it's the applicant commits to a secret as well as a hint to what that secret could be. And then it's sent off to a single verifier who has to guess the secret based on the hint. And as long as the applicant and verifier converge on the secret, then the applicant can move on to actually automatically enter the TCR. And if not, if there's a difference between the two, then it triggers a like challenge equivalent and then moves on to a voting round. So we've got some code coming along for that. We're initially trying to design it more as a game. So it's like a number game where the applicant submits some arithmetic operation as well as, you know, the outcome of that operation, and then the verifier has to guess the number. And so we're doing a lot of sort of security analysis on how to make sure the applicant and verifier don't collude, and basically provide high guarantees that the incentives are all there to utilize this coordination game and get objective information into a TCR. So hopefully we have some updates on that in a few weeks and maybe get the MVP of this numbers game out there for people to try.
What project is that?
Oh, it's Med Credits.
Oh, okay.
We actually rebranded, so we're now MedX Protocol, but same group. Have to get the X in there.
Are there any teams that aren't on this call that people think we should reach out to?
I know if you know Common Interest. They're based in New York. I know Terrence, who worked on it, worked on Autonomous as well.
I think the Rare Art team plans to do a TCR at some point in the future. I don't think they're represented on this call.
I think something that might also help is, and these calls are really great, I think, to get a good like lay of the land and different projects are working on. Something that might also help is if we spend a couple minutes or on the Telegram channel, maybe offline, people can message about this, but like what are the challenges that projects and individuals are having on a perhaps daily basis, and the considerations that they need to have. I think that type of discussion does a couple things. For one, it helps push the conversation forward. And also, you know, we're a really great community. Every project is doing pretty cool stuff. There might be something that I, for example, am struggling with that Emily, maybe you, like, for example, have a solution that you're working on that could help. And I think it's a really good way for projects to start collaborating on. So I think if we just spend some time talking about issues that we're facing.
Definitely. That's what we did on the last call. I'm not sure if you were there, but that was awesome. Yeah, I think that went really well, and that had a lot of really productive conversation and outcomes.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, yeah, definitely nailing down challenges and potential solutions is a great way to spend time on this call.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Nick and Mike, is the Salt Bays meeting still meeting?
No, so yeah, for people who don't know, we had a working group for the salt issue of people losing their salts, and Civil and the Consensus TCR, formerly known as TCR team, worked on a solution that we got into like a pretty good place. Definitely still some room for improvement, and we'll probably get that started again sometime soon. For it's like a pretty low-tech solution. Really quick, basically we save the salt in local storage. So if you use the same browser to reveal as you did to commit, your salt is there and we can pre-populate it so you don't need to remember it. It doesn't work if you're using a different computer or wipe your cache or whatever. But with the latest thing from Freebox that just got announced, I actually think there's a possibility we can use that to basically save your salt in a decentralized way and not rely on local storage. So when we have time to do that, we should get that meeting group up and running again.
The other really nice, like even lower tech thing that you do is just prompting users to add a calendar event, reminding them like when to reveal. That I think is like a super cool low tech helper.
Yeah, so the calendar event also has your salt in it in like a phrase, not the number itself. And we figured basically, even though you're storing it on like Google servers, if you're using a Google calendar, it's not that big of a deal. It's unlikely that a large number of Google accounts are compromised for this very specific thing.
Hey guys, it's Nick here from the MetaX ad chain team. For our UI and the ad chain registry, before you can even commit your vote, you have to download a JSON file with your commit in it. It seems to work, it doesn't prevent them from like losing it overall, but it definitely helps out. We could also explore the local storage path, but we just download it for them pretty much automatically before they even vote. So that's also another potential solution.
It might be too application specific, but it would be cool to see like a MetaMask feature that does salt management.
Yeah, if they could, you could just store like the encrypted secrets server side if you are able to decrypt using MetaMask, but I don't think that you could actually do that yet. If you could do like a general purpose encryption decryption with MetaMask, that would, I think, solve that problem.
Well, essentially, that's what I think that we're going to want to do with the 3-box stuff, but I haven't really looked into that very closely yet. But I think you're able to save private data in an encrypted way through that. So it should be pretty easy if that is how it works.
What's that project, 3-box or FreeBox?
3-box, they just had an announcement. Let me look for it.
It's part of Uport. It's like the number 3 box.
They just announced like, what, 2 days ago or something, or yesterday actually, so.
Hey Ryan, another question for you. I know one big discussion has been like constitutions versus no constitutions. It sounds like you guys went with less structured. Do you have any comments on how that might have worked or been challenging?
Yeah, maybe can you give more context to your question? Because I'm not familiar with any discussions about a constitution outside of civil.
Yeah, Dan, you might be able to add more color to that than I could.
Well, I think one of the key things we learned from AdChain was just like providing framework for like when and why you should challenge. So that's kind of what drove our constitution.
Yeah,
why you should challenge, I guess.
we put out frameworks and guides, but yeah, we wanted to leave it kind of more open-ended in the same way as like OpenStreetMap. It's really kind of like a user-generated system. And ours is a little bit also straightforward. It should be like if the building isn't there, challenge the point.
All right, it's about the hour. Aquia says in the chat, the more subjective your registry, the more you need guidelines. That makes sense. So I can send a follow-up email with kind of our next plans to create the channel. We took some notes. I think John took notes for us, send that along. Make a Telegram channel, and then we can continue to collaborate and evolve this meeting. So thanks for joining. Anyone else have any last words of goodbye? Okay.
See you guys in Prague.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm super excited.
If we start the Telegram group, we can at least meet up.
Communicate there, yeah.
We talk about foam, and thanks everyone who listened.
Yeah, that was an awesome demo. Thanks, Ryan. And thanks, all y'all.
Yeah, thanks, Ryan.
Bye, guys.
All right.
Thanks, everyone.